I want to just tell you briefly about my personal experience in Israel during the conflict with Gaza, because I think this illustrates the reality of the situation compared to what the media tell us and the world and many other influential people in the world tell us. And the first thing, I visited an air base, an Israeli Air Force base near the Gaza border, and I spoke to a group of pilots. One of the pilots was a Scottish guy who is in the Israeli Air Force. He told me that morning he'd flown, it was something like 9 attempts to attack a target in Gaza, a high-value target. And each time, either he or his controllers had identified that there were civilians there. So each time it had been aborted, and finally they decided not to carry out the attack. Now, if they did 9 attack runs against a single target, that suggests it was a significant target. But they nevertheless decided to abort the attack because they didn't want to kill innocent civilians. And I said to that pilot, "Didn't you find that frustrating?" And he said, "No, I didn't find it frustrating." He said, "It's the greatest thing about the Israeli Air Force. We're not allowed to attack a target if we know there are civilians there." He said, "I'm a father of 2 children, I'm a husband, I'm a practicing Jew. How could I live with myself if I deliberately bombed women and children? How could I be a role model to my young children?" That is the morality. During my time there, I was there for the whole of the conflict. I had meetings with the Prime Minister, right the way down through generals, colonels, and individual soldiers fighting on the ground. In the Prime Minister's security cabinet, which he held at least once a day to direct the conflict, the first item on the agenda, the very first item that the security cabinet considered was Palestinian civilian casualties. That was number 1 item, every single meeting. It tells you something. And it wasn't just the Prime Minister and the Chief of Staff, but right the way down through the chain of command to the lowest soldier on the ground, who I questioned. They knew the rules, they knew what they had to do, and I believed, having served for 30 years myself and worked with soldiers from a number of different armies, that they really meant it. I spoke to a 19-year-old private, an engineer, whose job was to go down into a tunnel, clear the tunnel, get intelligence and information about it before the engineers then destroyed the tunnel. I was talking to him when he'd just come out of the tunnel. He was covered in sweat, covered in dirt, still pent up from this experience. What did he do in the tunnel? What did he know? What did he expect in the tunnel? He expected the most extreme danger to his life, because in those tunnels they had booby traps, they had landmines, they had tripwires, they had snipers, they had machine guns, they had suicide attackers, and they had human shields between Hamas and the Israelis coming through the tunnel. And he was 19 years of age, and he said to me, I said, "What were you thinking about? What was going through your mind when you were going through the tunnel?" He said, "Uppermost in my mind was the fact that I must not kill innocent civilians. I knew they had human shields there, and I knew I must not kill them." He wasn't saying that to me because he knew I wanted to hear it. He didn't know the hell I was. But it was the reality. That was the morality. That young man of 19 years of age died the next day going into another tunnel. And I always think when I talk to these people, I think of the words of Golda Meir, who I think her words sum up the morality of the IDF. And those words were, "We can forgive the Arabs for killing our children. We cannot forgive the Arabs for forcing us to kill their children."